We'll go ahead and kick things off. So what we want to focus on today, everyone? You've all read the invite and obviously know the topic of what we're going to cover today, which is really just the valuable selling motion of how to map out decision makers and ultimately drive deeper relationships across your sales organization, internally and externally to the marketplace, with the goal of driving more revenue across all of your accounts. Now, I know we have different personas on the phone today. We have some folks that are in the trenches and selling on a daily basis. We have folks in operations. We have some sales leadership. So we'll make the content as relevant as possible to everyone today. But I'll kick it off to just to set the stage around why I wanted to have this webinar. Obviously, it ties back to our company, Prolific, who's a Salesforce partner. But more importantly, it's just something that I'm very, very passionate about as a career seller, plan on continuing to be a career seller. And I always need to check myself on a daily and on a weekly basis around why I got into sales. There's the highs and the lows of selling day in, day out. But when I made the career decision to say this is what I want to do for the rest of my life and professional career, and why I got into it is ultimately to help people and to help people solve business challenges. And as a seller, as we all know, there's so many different directions that you get pulled into on a daily basis, whether it's contracting discussions, whether it's internal meetings, your product discussions, your pipeline reviews, which are always fun. But what makes all of those things better and easier in my mind is if you're driving the activity to get a relationship with somebody to ensure that you're solving their problems and making their lives easier. So the topic today and what we really want to focus on is how do we map out multiple decision makers? How do we influence people to get to those decision makers? How do we manage a broad range of the relationships that we need to drive those deeper relationships across accounts? I can't count in my head the amount of times that I've gotten to the finish line of a deal, or that I've been midway through a deal and realized, oh man, I'm very single threaded within this particular account. And I'm sure we all have those types of stories to where we get aligned to those one or two decision maker, or those one or two relationships that we have, which is easy to do, to where at the end of a selling cycle, people and opinions always come in at the finish line to say, whoa, let's take a step back, which can cause risk to you as a seller, which can cause risk to timing of a deal. And what we want to talk through today is kind of the art and the science around this, why this is important, and the technology that Prolific has that can help make these selling motions a lot easier for end-to-end sellers through the Salesforce platform. So I don't want to be the only one speaking today, which is a good thing for the audience. I brought on two amazing people, rock stars across their organizations that have had amazing careers up to this point, and also Prolific customers that see value in our applications, as well as just have awesome stories and that this audience can learn from today around what enterprise selling means to them, specifically what mapping out key decision makers means to them and their organization. So we have on the line here Mandy Phoebus, who's the VP of Customer Engagement at Valpak. I think Mandy can provide an awesome perspective, not being in sales daily, but she's ingrained in sales processes daily and touches all aspects of the organization, has been sold technology to many, many times, and has a unique opinion around different deal cycles that she's been in. I'll be quiet and we'll touch on Phil. But Mandy, do you want to just give a quick background of yourself and Valpak?
Yeah, thank you, Eddie, for the introduction, and thank you for having me here today. So as Eddie mentioned, I'm the VP of Customer Engagement at Valpak, really focused on end-to-end demand generation, lead generation, client retention programs, and everything in between, as well as overseeing our Salesforce operations and kind of how that builds into the company and into the sales organization as one of our core pillars. So my background is in marketing and sales working together, of course. I have 16 years experience in working with Salesforce as a platform and other software as a service. And, in terms of just kind of thinking about what I hope that I can bring to this discussion today is a little bit more of a spin from the marketing side of it, as well as speaking to some of my own experiences. As Eddie mentioned, I've purchased a lot of SaaS services over the past decade and a half. So kind of bringing a different lens to this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mandy. We're excited to hear your perspective on this topic. And we also have Phil Booker, who comes from one of our customers, Optiv. Phil's had an amazing sales career, been very, very successful at Optiv as a seller, in sales management, is now an area vice president of Optiv and managing a selling team, and think that he can provide a very unique perspective on kind of his day-to-day, his experiences and working with lots of stakeholders and enterprise selling and what that means to Phil. But Phil, I'll turn it over to you for a quick introduction of yourself and Optiv.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, Eddie. Thanks for having us. And Phil Booker. I live in Florida. I'm originally a Navy guy who got in technology and was a long time IBMer originally as a consultant before moving into sales. And I'd say my approach is always that consultative selling because I come from a background of being a consultant. Did a short stint with a startup software vendor before moving over to Optiv. And in the past 6 years, I've gone from carrying a bag on a daily basis as what we call a client manager, your account exec, into leading a team of 10. And now, as Eddie said, the area vice president for the Southeast. So I have definitely learned my lessons on identifying who the key stakeholders are, not just within IT security, which is where Optiv tends to live. Optiv is a security solutions integrator, which really just means we focus really around cybersecurity, just trying to help clients link up the technology and the services to build a strategic program and be proactive about minimizing their risks and securing their entire environment. Appreciate the time and appreciate you guys listening.
Awesome. Thanks, Mandy. Thanks, Phil. So I'll provide a quick agenda today, just so you guys are aware of the journey we'll take you down. And before doing that, I'll just introduce, for those that aren't aware of Prolific, who we are as an organization and where we provide value to sellers. So Prolific is a Salesforce partner. Myself, a lot of our team, we come from selling at Salesforce. And what we found as sellers at Salesforce is that we were getting pulled out of our CRM, which was obviously Salesforce at the time, to do key selling motions. And a lot of those key selling motions were really focused on enablement for sellers. Things like strategic account planning, key account management, things like hunting and pecking for content, and being able to find the right content at the right time. And the biggest one for us, which we're focusing on today, is extracting CRM data to be able to visualize who's who within an organization and how we drive deeper relationships and take that consultative approach as to how we're going to provide value to them in order to sell solutions. So our methodology and what we're passionate about as an organization is bringing those key motions, those key selling motions into the Salesforce platform to make salespeople's lives easier by leveraging your Salesforce data set. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to take a few minutes just to talk about why this topic is so important from my perspective and what we're hearing as experts in our space from the marketplace and talking to organizations on a regular basis on why these selling motions are so important and challenges that they do face. And then we're going to hear from the experts. We're going to hear from Mandy. We're going to hear from Phil and just have a conversation around what relationship mapping means to them and their organizations, how they go about determining, finding real influencers and decision makers across key accounts, how to go about the mapping strategy, how to leverage the resources at your disposal, and just have a really thorough conversation, which hopefully the audience can pick up some good nuggets from today to take into your daily selling lives based on the conversation that you hear. And then towards the end of it today, we're going to talk about the technology piece, our perspective on how we can make that selling motion simpler and easier for the end seller to leverage your Salesforce data set through relationship mapping within your Salesforce instance. So we'll start here. Why is relationship mapping important? Now, I have these conversations on a regular basis. I obviously live it with my team of great sellers who are doing this motion on a regular basis, and larger complex deals that we're working where there's lots of opinions, different business units that we're selling into, as well as kind of unique situations around what we're hearing from our customers and prospective customers and some of our networks around what they're feeling and what they're seeing on a daily basis. And it all ties back, in my opinion, to what I started with, which is helping people solve business challenges. But in order to help people to solve business challenges, sometimes you need to get a little bit out of your comfort zone when it comes to how you're approaching these customers, how you're asking for referrals internally, how you build a supporter and a champion out of somebody that may be a blocker or somebody that's neutral. So all of these things are really, really important when it comes to the risk phase of selling, which is getting a deal done and ensuring that everybody that's going to have a seat at the table in that boardroom around the table says, yes, I know who Eddie is. We've had great conversations. He got to me this way and is solving for XYZ across my organization. So challengers that sellers are facing today is really just understanding who and how organizations purchase products and services. And our point of view, and when we talk to organizations that need to do this at scale, is that when you're enabling the end seller, it's important to provide that guidance and that structure around how your organization goes to market across your key accounts, and specifically around key personnel within that organization that typically you'll need to leverage in order to get a deal done. Now, this statistic here, 70% of employees quit their jobs within 2 years of being hired. That's a big one. I'm sure we've all run into a deal or a relationship that we're building to where somebody's going to leave an organization. That leaves the importance of being multi-threaded in accounts and always having the anxiety and always being paranoid about the relationship that you're building, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to pursue another opportunity. And the goal and what good relationship mapping looks like is if somebody leaves an organization, we know who the next person is that we need to be in communication with. New job and account transitions. This gets back to the first bullet point around guidance. It's important to have that structure in place and the data represented in Salesforce, in our opinion. So as you're doing your account transitions through the year, you're taking on a new job and stepping into seat at an organization, it's important to have that guidance around how we build relationships internally. And then obtaining internal resources. Multi-threaded selling just isn't being multi-threaded at your customers or your prospective customers. It's also being multi-threaded internally. A lot of organizations have amazing resources that can help them sell, whether it's through engineering, whether it's through executive alignment that you can bring in to help you drive deeper relationships within an account. So being able to get visibility into these accounts and the relationships that we're building to align our internal stakeholders with the prospective customer or customer stakeholders is super, super important to get to additional revenue, to find additional cross-sell and upsell when you're thinking crossing over into different business units and finding different opportunities to build your pipeline as a seller. And also understanding your coaches, your champions, what the sentiment is towards the organization, and being able to organize that in a cohesive manner through reporting and dashboards. And then ultimately being able to build out a strong org structure to always be thinking about getting to the next level and building those coaches and building those champions and potential blockers within an organization, because as an end seller that eventually you're going to get there and the decision makers are going to have a seat at the table. So enough from me. I want to start the conversation with Phil and Mandy with all of these bullets in mind, just around what really, we'll start with just relationship mapping means to you. So Phil, we'll start with you. I've kind of described how my perspective as a seller. Every industry has a different methodology. Each company has a different way and how they go to market. But Phil, I'd love to get your perspective just around why relationship mapping is important to your organization, how you approach it from a leadership level and coaching your team around what good looks like and driving deeper relationships in your accounts.
Yeah, I mean, for Optiv, we've grown up as a reseller and as a consulting arm that has come together to be that integrator. But talking and working with different folks within an organization has created some of those challenges of when you get to the end of a deal, are you, as you laid out, Eddie, just working single threaded with your champion and maybe one supporter inside of IT or IT security? Have you touched procurement? Have you touched legal to make sure all those details are covered? From an Optiv perspective, our selling methodology is based on force management, and we use kind of a medic to come up with what do you know about a single deal. But for us, we've always traditionally worked with IT security folks, but as we have evolved, it's been more about asking the client how they like to engage. Maybe it is our IT champion. Maybe it's talking to procurement. For me, I'm coaching quite often for my sellers who want to live in their comfort space of, I just want to go talk to the CISO or security director or maybe the security manager. Have you talked to procurement? Because I like to say through procurement to security and the business. Procurement will tell you about those new projects coming up, right? There'll be your own champion on the business side as you're trying to net out those final details when you come to the end. Because for us, it's ultimately of, yes, understanding the client's business, being that strategic business partner, but then be able to bring it together both from a technical and business perspective to communicate and then maximize the effectiveness of whatever technology or program that we're trying to align for them.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And yeah, the dreaded procurement discussion, I completely agree with you. Everybody knows that it's coming down the road, right? And it's asking and getting the alignment and building a true champion to get you involved with procurement as quickly as possible, because you never really know what you're stepping into in a procurement process, and building those relationships up front is crucial in my mind. So that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing. Mandy, from a Valpak perspective, understanding you guys have a different go-to-market strategy, and you're targeting different types of stakeholders compared to the world of Phil in cybersecurity. How do your top strategic sellers approach that, and how do you support them from a data perspective when they're looking at relevant stakeholders across their accounts and driving those relationships?
Sure. Thanks, Eddie. So in terms of Valpak, I'm sure many people are familiar with Valpak. We are the blue envelope coupon company that comes to your mailbox. So we hit about 39 million homes per month, and generally have about 35,000 different advertisers. So you can imagine our customers range from, the pizza shop on the corner, a small operation, to, the Sam's Clubs across the country. So we have to plan for a lot of different sales complexities in terms of selling. So in speaking, about some of our key account strategies and the approach that we take, really to understand who it is that you need to work with, it's asking a lot of good questions and listening. Listening is the most important piece of the puzzle. One of the things that we ask our reps to do is really look for that decision maker right away, and try to get that appointment set. Like, how can I get the next conversation, and who do you want invited into that conversation? That's a great indicator of understanding who the key players are going to be in supporting that decision maker and making that deal. So you can help identify, maybe who are the blockers, to your point, who are the influencers, and after that point, understanding who you can turn into a champion to help you move it down the line. From our perspective too, it's, dealing with the different size businesses on a daily basis. You have to understand that everybody has a lot of different roles. So making sure that, in an industry like the medical industry, there's going to be different roles that act kind of as those gatekeepers or blockers for you. For example, walking into a dentist office, all of our reps know that whoever is the office manager or working at the front desk is generally going to be the blocker protecting the dentist or the doctor's time. So again, it's kind of thinking about, knowing that going into it, thinking about the messaging that you would use to target those types of influencers or blockers within the organization.
Yeah.
A marketing perspective, just to take that spin on it, I would say a similar approach, right? For us, it's really important in the system if we can tag and identify who are the decision makers at an organization and who might be the influencers, or simply who is the billing contact, right? Like, how are we going to get an invoice to somebody? So we can actually help sales. And what we do is try to help sales by delivering more of an account-based marketing strategy with them and tailoring that message to the respective personas that, they're also trying to work with. Different content downloads for different people, different case studies, for a decision maker versus somebody who might be an influencer. So again, kind of working collaboratively across the sales and marketing org.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So taking the what the sales team is doing and identifying those key personas across the organizations and the specific companies that you're selling to, and then taking that to the next level and saying, okay, based on the data that we've found, who our blockers are, supporters are, here's our purchaser. Now we're going to market to these people with relevant part-out messaging or whatever marketing automation tool you're using. That's really interesting and shows kind of the power of what data can do if these motions are done right. So thank you for that. So we've talked so far just about the structure around, okay, we need to find our blockers, our supporters, our champions, et cetera. But Phil, I'm sure that you've run into instances, and it sounds like you're proactive in finding out who blockers may be. What's your approach around how do you leverage relationships that you have, whether it's cross business unit, whether it's cross personas, to say, okay, how am I going to leverage the relationship that I have to get referred to somebody who may be a blocker? So what's your approach in being proactive and figuring out who those blockers are and how you're going to turn them into supporters and champions at Optiv?
Well, I'd say for a lot of the organizations we work with, especially in IT, there's traditional IT operations, or there's now a lot of development operation folks that are not security, quote unquote, security folks, right? But security now bleeds into these different areas. So we've had to leverage our traditional relationships because there might be a new technology, just a gap that is going to have to pull in somebody from traditional IT operations or dev operations. The challenge is our client, even the champion that we might have, a supporter, might not have that relationship with that, their peer in one of those different lines of business. So it is on us to, quite often, Eddie, it's grabbing some of our internal resources that can quickly get us credibility in whether it's a conversation, some of the marketing that Mandy's talking about, whatever touches that person in the first 1 to 2 interactions with them, to let them know that, one, we do have the expertise that they're looking for, and it is going to align with something they need to address immediately.
Yeah. No, that makes good sense. And you bring up a good point around internal resources. Internal resources in a lot of organizations that I've talked to is they're valuable assets to a seller. And typically their time is very, very valuable because they're a high asset resource for the organization. So how does your team as a seller say, hey, I need your time now? Like, how do you create the visibility to say, okay, this is a big opportunity or something that we're working on, and how do you navigate that internally across your high valued resources?
Yeah, we actually have, we call them demand teams, right? So those pre-sales type resources that have a technical background that can have that quick, credible conversation with, a client, a new stakeholder that we're trying to change and become a supporter or a champion for us. The demand team is aligned to us by a region, by area, not necessarily down to individual sellers. The sellers themselves have peers on the technical side that they're aligned to, not quite one for one, but that demand team is there. So if a topic comes up, we pull them in very quickly to have that conversation.
Great. That's awesome. And hopefully what you're seeing through leveraging relationship maps is that rather than having a 30-minute or hour-long debrief call with them, that the visibility and the data that you're bringing into Salesforce can create more visibility, more collaboration around that data within the walls of Salesforce to make their lives easier and to make those meetings more impactful as you're bringing in that demand team. So that's That's awesome.
And Eddie, specifically to that, since we have begun using Prolific and the account plans that are inside of Salesforce, it's limited the necessity for a sales rep to have to put together the email and send it over or have a call to give the background, right? There is quick tribal knowledge right there in the account plan of, who do we know, where we're positioned in the account, and what our goals and objectives are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. Thanks, Phil. So I'd like to take the conversation just real quick. I'm sure both of you guys, or I know both of you guys, just through personal experience, have both been sold to, and I think all of us as sellers, we found ourselves in getting into. There's the teetering the line of becoming an annoying salesperson compared to a trusted advisor that. You as an end buyer is going to say, I trust this person. I think that they're doing their job well. I'm going to get them over to this person who's going to make a decision for their business unit. So Mandy, I'd love to hear some stories around whether it's through renewals coming up, whether it's through technology that you've purchased, maybe just some experiences that you've had as a buyer and what good looks like from somebody selling to you. And maybe what not so good looks like when somebody's selling to you.
Certainly have had both experiences. Eddie, you've always been on the side of good, so that's great news. So in terms of, being sold to, and I guess maybe where I have fallen on the relationship map, generally I am the internal champion. Again, being, one of the overseers of our Salesforce CRM strategy and SaaS strategies that relate to it. I am a champion of the products that we are trying to put into the system. So really when I'm working with a seller, what I'm looking for is, the benefits, so what's in it for me, of course. And by what's in it for me, I mean, what's in it for our sales organization? What is the return on investment? And my expectation is that a seller is going to actually help me do that calculation and prove it, right? So working collaboratively, even the deal that we worked on, Eddie, collaborating across the return on investment to see where we can have those proof points for various people within the organization. How can we save time? How do we save money? And most importantly, how do we get better insights from the data that we have in the system? to leverage that to make better marketing decisions, to make better sales decisions. So, I think from my perspective, it's always been a goal to be very transparent with anyone that I'm working with in this type of relationships. These are, high stakes relationships in terms of these investments that we're making. So I always want to put everyone in a good position and a position to win. So ultimately, whether it's me signing the contract or me championing the contract, again, I think it's really just important to collaborate on those proof points and really drive home what is, the win-win situation for the organization.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So like what I picked up on there is there's, as a seller and putting my buyer's hat on, is that there's the right time and the right place to ask for that referral across the organization, to ask, Mandy, we've talked about this, and this, we validated this, here's our business case. Now, does it make sense to have a seat at the table with all of the decision makers that are going to be making a decision here? So it's not just going and saying, hey, can you refer me to somebody? It's, hey, can you refer me to somebody across your organization for this, and this reason? So sounds like when thorough discovery comes into play, being able to build out that business case will help you earn the right to become that trusted advisor compared to that annoying salesperson.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point too, of, just identifying the challenges, whether it's I've reached out to you, you've reached out to me, however we've kind of connected, but really, what are the pain points that we're trying to solve? And again, tying that back to the ROI. But, once you build that business story and you have the ROI there, I think it's great to work really collaboratively with, the seller, the buyer, and trying to move everything forward, because of course we're ultimately working toward a similar goal at that point because we've built the case together.
Yeah, no, that's great. Phil, any perspective around that?
For as a buyer, and I would say whether I'm buying or as a sales leader communicating to my team, I've flat out told clients, and I approach it the same way, like, I don't want to be sold to, and I don't want my folks selling to their client, right? I want them to be very consultative. And as Mandy's saying, build the business case, right? If you've strategically aligned to them as a business partner, you've taken the time to get to know them, maybe develop some rapport on a personal level, where their pain points at, as Mandy is saying, both on the business side, maybe they have some MBOs they're trying to meet. That will help you build the business case. In the process I went through on identifying the right account planning tool, it was a 3-year process. And up until last year, I was being sold to. This is why we're the best. Last year, it was, why is it relevant for Optiv? How can we give you the best view of a client that's going to take you guys on a growth horizon that you're trying to achieve, not in 10 years, but in 3 years.
That's great. And thank you both for the feedback. And I think that'll bring us into our last discussion point, and then we'll get into some of the technology and how we feel that we can enhance that. But Mandy, you've lived and breathed Salesforce for a lot of your career, and I think I know you understand the importance of why bringing selling motions into Salesforce is important for you. For your sellers, for your customer success team, for anybody in operations that's leveraging Salesforce as a technology. What's the value to you and your team of bringing selling motions into Salesforce to be that true central source of truth as at the operations and executive level, as well as for your end sellers?
So selfishly, from a marketing perspective, obviously any data that is in Salesforce we can use to leverage for an ABM strategy. And really, our number one goal is fill the funnel, qualify those leads coming into the funnel, and push them through. So really helping our sales rep, it's like a help me help you type of thing. If they can get that info in there, we can leverage it and really drive home a customized communication plan and strategy at the account specific level, which is great. On a larger scale, though, in terms of having Salesforce as a core pillar and appending on these SaaS services like Prolific has, in order for it to make sense, it needs to be create a sense of transparency for the organization. So for us, a few years ago, we kicked off a transformation project, as every company does, trying to understand where are all of our disparate systems coming from, where are they, what kind of information are they housing, and how do we pull that into Salesforce to make a complete picture of what does the customer journey look like, what are our sales reps having to do from an operations perspective, and how can we streamline that on the Salesforce platform, leveraging clicks, not code, and a lot of the out of the box features and objects that are there already. So for us, it's really critical that everything live in one location at the executive level. Any questions that need to be answered, they can click a few buttons, run reports, and have insights there. And as reporting only gets stronger and stronger on the Salesforce platform, we're now able to leverage Tableau for really complex data insights. And again, leveraging all of this to make better decisions at both the marketing and the sales levels. So, for me, if it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. And selfishly, again, both from a marketing perspective and sales perspective, if we have it there, we can make the best decisions moving forward at the account specific level.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for the feedback, Mandy. And for Phil, for you, when it comes to managing a selling team, when it comes to relationship mapping specifically, account planning holistically, with relationship mapping being a pillar to account planning, what's been the value to you in bringing this motion into Salesforce from a coaching perspective compared to having disparate spreadsheets, PowerPoint relationship maps, et cetera?
I think the biggest thing is taking it from a compliance exercise to something that's actionable. For me as a leader, I dealt with it as a rep as well. I was always trying to answer the question of what's next. And you think you're maximizing the value of a client, you're getting all the addressable market that you can, but you're only talking to 3 people. And in the exercises we've gone through, the sessions we've gone through, you get the additional outside perspective of leadership or somebody from that demand team I mentioned before. And hey, have you thought about this persona, right? Maybe it's the CFO, maybe it's the chief digital officer that you haven't gone after. Simply putting a placeholder in there and creating an objective to say, let's as a team figure out the right messaging, working back with marketing, going into, yes, yet another disparate application to maybe pull out some content. Ideally, one day we'll be able to pull everything together in a central location. But for me as a rep, I used to use 5 different things to, 1, understand my clients, manage them, strategically think about them, and then execute. And now we're starting to do that in more of a centralized place with all eyes looking at that versus the spreadsheets and PowerPoints, as you're pointing out, Eddie.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the feedback, Phil. So opening up the data into where everybody's living on a daily basis to help enhance the collaboration, to help enhance the guided selling, and like you said, take action against something that was previously more of a compliance check the box type of motion compared to how are we helping you sell? How are we getting the right content in your hands? How are we helping you address and find that relevant stakeholder? So awesome discussion, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, expertise in the space around what this motion means, how you guys go to market, how you've been sold to, and best practices around that. So what we're going to end today with is to just give a little bit of perspective around what our application can do, and how, to our last point, how bringing this into Salesforce helps sellers sell more and sell better and get aligned with the right stakeholders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share just my screen real quick, and I'm going to get into what Prolific does as an organization specific to relationship mapping. So what you're seeing now is our 100% native Salesforce application. I'm just at an account record within Salesforce today. And our perspective, and I brought up guided selling a few times today, and why it's important for a seller that's stepping into seat to say, okay, here's who's who, and here's what good looks like at our organization, and the people that we should be driving those relationships with, and the people that we should be focusing on and ensuring that we're building supporters out of them by the thorough discovery that we're doing, the value that we're bringing to them, But all the time, a seller doesn't necessarily know how many and who they need to be getting aligned with. So that's our guided selling approach, is at the relationship map level, being able to go in, find all of your Salesforce contacts, and to be able to drag them within the map to say, oh, I know that our management team thinks best practice is to align with these 11 stakeholders. I need to go in and either find these contacts and do a mapping exercise as to who's who, replace them with that person, and then drive the relationship with them to ensure that, hey, this person's a supporter, this person's a blocker, et cetera. This is what turns into, at the relationship map level, a very full, thorough relationship map. So by guiding your sellers and by bringing your expertise around how they should be going to market, Prolific's advantage in helping make sellers' life easier is being able to get this visual representation of all of your contacts. Now, at the very base level, it comes down to who reports to who, and let's organize our contacts within Salesforce better. So as you can see here, I've pulled in how my organization has guided me to say, here's what good looks like. And I've been able to go and drag and drop the right people around who reports to within Salesforce today. And all of this is tying directly back to your Salesforce contact record. So you're not fumbling between a PowerPoint document, extracting data into an Excel sheet to manage all of this. All of this is right at your fingertips within the walls of Salesforce, all tying back to your Salesforce data set. And you're seeing that we're organizing this in a manner to say, okay, here's the board of directors that we know that we're going to need to get to eventually. Here's the procurement team that Phil was referencing to say, we know that these 3 people are going to be part of the procurement process. We should get aligned with them early and leverage relationships that we have to get to those folks. So that's the way that you organize the data within Salesforce to make your lives easier compared to a very manual process outside of the walls of Salesforce. But then it comes down to, what do we do with that relationship? Or what do we do with that data that we now have in Salesforce now that we have it organized? It's a matter of being able to be proactive to figure out who are our blockers within an organization, who do we need to focus on. We know, for instance, that Kelly Smith, we just had a great conversation with Kelly Smith. We understand that from what she's told us, that she has a relationship with John Foley. They used to work together, and John Foley just came into the organization. So they're old colleagues. And those old colleagues, now that we know that Kelsey is a supporter of ours, we're going to ask her and say, Kelsey, we've done X, Y, Z for you. We'd really love to get over to John Foley, who oversees the orthopedics department. Now we know that we need to, and John Foley came from an organization that maybe leveraged one of our competitors, but he's a high influencer here. We've already identified that he's a high influencer. So we're going to leverage the relationship that we have with Kelsey to say, John, knock on John's door. Hey, let's talk. Kelsey's a supporter for this reason. Here's the business value that we can bring to your organization compared to a competitor of ours. It was an awesome conversation. So because of the relationship that we leveraged with Kelsey, we've now positioned John as a supporter of ours. So John's going to change colors. And now next time we come into the map, he's going to be represented as a supporter of Prolific. And so now that we can see John is now a supporter of ours, and now we have that within the map for any of our internal team over on the right-hand side that needs to help manage this relationship better. So this is a big part of being multi-threaded internally at your organization, whether it's Phil's demand team, whether it's an executive engagement program that you have going on. This provides executives a place within Salesforce directly at the account or the opportunity level to go in and say, oh, Casey Smith, I need to make sure I'm maintaining and holding the executive relationship with Michelle at the executive level now that they're a customer of ours. I know that John needs to manage the technical and product relationship with Ryan down below, and I own that relationship. I know Jenny, as the account rep, needs to manage all of these clients and be the one that brokers introductions and keeps everybody on the same page. And now I have all of that data at my fingertips within Salesforce. And also being able to take action holistically across all of your stakeholders within your accounts. So being able to have a home base around relationships to say, here's the number of stakeholders I have. So these ones with 4, I know typically we need 10, 15, et cetera, stakeholders to ensure that everybody, that we're aligning with everybody and that we're driving that relationship. I have some work to do. So I'm going to go manage the relationship at these accounts to where I have lesser stakeholders. You can also manipulate the data to say, okay, who are blockers, who are neutral folks, who are supporters and champions? I know that we're doing a decent job at this account in Xenon at this division because we have 4 champions. Now I'm going to dive into the underlying data around how do we bring these blockers to supporters, to champions, et cetera. From a management level, you can help manage to this and come up with strategies now that you have the data at your fingertips within Salesforce. And as a seller, you're able to stay on top of all of the different accounts that you have and the relationships that you have, because I know that I haven't touched these stakeholders in the last 30 days. So it's guiding me as a seller to say, okay, we have a big opportunity coming up with Johns Hopkins. I have 9 supporters that I haven't had contact with in 30 days. I need to spend my morning driving activities, setting meetings across all of these stakeholders because I'm projecting a deal that's coming down the pipeline in 60, 90 days. So I have some work to do here. But if that's sitting on a spreadsheet, if that's sitting in an Excel document, you don't have all of the benefit of your CRM aligning to these stakeholders. And that's the value that Prolific brings through relationship mapping specifically, which can then tie into full end-to-end key account planning and account management, and the management behind it, and being able to guide you as a seller as to what good looks like and how you're driving those deeper relationships. So that's all the content that we had for you today. Thanks again, Mandy and Phil, for taking the time to share your experiences, your expertise in this. And for those folks on the phone, if there are any questions, I don't see anything in the chat. We're happy to answer them. And we'll be getting a recording out to all of you to spread across your internal orgs if what you heard was valuable today and you want to continue the conversation. Phil, Mandy, any closing remarks from you guys before hopping off? If
Mandy?
not, completely fine.
No, Eddie, thanks again for having us. And yeah, I'm happy to always answer any question that you might have, having gone through the process. And as Eddie laid out initially, right, across a couple different areas of expertise in sales, from IBM to here at Optiv.
Thank you, Phil.
Absolutely. And echo the sentiment, Eddie and team, thank you for having me here today. Same thing, again, looking at it through a different lens from a marketing perspective, also collaborating heavily with sales organizations over the past, 20 years or so. Definitely happy to give any additional insights or speak to any of the Prolific tools as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It was an awesome session, and we'll follow up with everyone with the recording. Thanks, everyone, and have an awesome day.